everybody. Welcome back to our newest episode of Strange Appalachia here. Hopefully, everybody's been staying safe through the quarantine and everything, staying 6 foot apart, washing your hands, all that good stuff that we talked about last time. But tonight we wanted to come in and do an episode, sort of an overview and some of our thoughts on what is probably, if you don't count Bigfoot, because Bigfoot's the most common throughout the world, probably the most well known of the Appalachian cryptids, or at least up there on that list of most well known, and that is the Mothman, which is mainly geared towards West Virginia. So we're branching out away from our local area here a little bit, moving through some of the other parts of Appalachia. So, Charlie, you want to hit the ground running here?
Yeah. So November 1966 is the first sighting of the Mothman. It was sighted by 5 cemetery workers around the area of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and they just described a giant bird, basically. Later, 2 couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Maletti, I believe is how you pronounce the last name. They had the most well-known run-in with the Mothman, and supposedly they were out one night traveling. They were driving back home, and it swooped their car. And they actually described it more as a bird man than a Mothman. Of course, it's the classic thing you see where it doesn't have head, the eyes look to be in the body, and there's 2 large wings on the side.
Yeah, I have them saying the wingspan, or the wings were about 10 feet. So,
Yeah.
I mean, pretty big animal.
Yeah. And actually, when this thing was first seen, Spider-Man was very popular. And originally it was called the Big Bird. But people capitalized upon the name Spider-Man, and they went with Mothman. And of course, in the town there, Point Pleasant, there's the classic Mothman statue that anybody that goes through there wants to get their picture made with.
Absolutely.
But anyway, these 2 married couples were driving back home, and this thing swooped their car. And I actually heard an interview where, I believe it was Mary, and she said that one of the things that she saw was a large dog in the road that was dead, and she believed it was feeding on that dog. And that's important because another gentleman, and I don't have his name, in another county supposedly saw it fly over his house. And his dog was a German Shepherd and took off chasing it. And he never saw the dog again. So he believes that dog that she saw in the road was his dog, that had actually killed it and carried it over to this area they were in.
Newell Partridge was that guy's name.
Newell Partridge, okay.
Newell. Newell.
Which that's a very Appalachian name for sure. Yeah, so he believes that was his dog that they saw lay in the road, and that the Mothman supposedly killed this dog. A lot of people think that it came from an area there that was an old World War II TNT factory, and they call it the TNT area. And it was kind of like an old government area, government property, where teenagers went and hung out at night. You know, not a lot of parents or chaperones there, so they would go out there and party basically. And they believe that the chemicals from that area mutated a herring, is one of the theories that I've heard. Of course, there's also the theories that it's a kind of like a harbinger of ill omen, where it predicts the future. And of course, that leads into the Silver Bridge, which is the bridge there into Point Pleasant that collapsed, and a lot of people died. They believe that it was heralding that.
So one of the other things that I see, or I've seen in several different articles that I've read about the Mothman, is not only do they have these sightings, but several people are attributing static, like on a TV or on a radio, to this thing being close as well, buzzing noises and static on televisions and radios. So, if it is something that's mutated, That would sort of, I guess, lend itself to that because you've got, something that's possibly radiated that is, messing up with the radio and TV waves.
Yeah, it's the same thing, kind of if it was some kind of interdimensional or spiritual being. Um, I know I've read that it affects lights differently. Um, there's actually recently been a bunch of sightings of a winged humanoid, and they also attribute it to Mothman in Chicago.
Hmm.
Um, so there's a lot of these winged humanoids that people have seen. The Mothman just happens to be the most popular one of them, and Point Pleasant's done a really good job of capitalizing on this thing. They have a huge festival every year. Something like I want to say there's something like 15 to 20,000 people show up, maybe even more, to this festival they have every year for the Mothman.
To go along with your point of it, people attributing it as a harbinger of ill omen. Um, a lot of people claim to have seen the Mothman in this isn't in Appalachia, obviously, but in Moscow, Russia, before the 1999 Russian apartment bombings. So that sort of goes along that same thread of, if this thing is a harbinger of ill omen, it's done it more than just in that one spot.
Yeah, it's almost like a banshee. Those things.
Right.
They're that's an Irish myth, and they're harbingers of death as well. Um, but it's supposedly one of these supernatural beings that shows up before something bad happens. Um, I think it's interesting that so many people saw this creature. I know that a lot of people are saying it's a blue herring that was in the area, and people were just misidentifying it. Um, some people believe that it was actually a great horned owl that was being misidentified. And when you look at the silhouette or the outline of it, I could 100% see it being an owl.
Sandhill crane is another one that I've seen.
Yeah,
Another species of bird.
yeah, it's definitely there's definitely a lot of things that it could have been, that aren't supernatural. Um, I know that in the same interview that I heard, Mary Gibbs, she said that she wished she had never saw it. I actually believe there's a more mundane answer. We'll cover that in the next episode because it's pretty in depth. But I actually believe that this mystery's been solved. Um, I don't think that there's anything supernatural about it. But like I said, we'll cover that in the next episode.
Yeah, and we haven't talked about that yet. We are going to do Mothman in 2 episodes here, to because there's so much to talk about. There's so much to go with here. So they may be shorter than normal episodes, but they're going to be two together. So you'll have
I,
that to look forward to.
I know in one of the paranormal groups we were in before that one of the guys in that group was really really big on the Mothman. He really followed a lot of the stories and stuff like that. Um, the other thing, there's a couple other things that were real about the Mothman that are pretty interesting. The Men in Black actually came from this Mothman story. Um,
I
they were
didn't know
not,
that.
yeah, they were not reported before this, and all of a sudden these guys are showing up. And once you start studying about those Men in Black that go along with this story, you find out they actually shut down or ran off one of the ladies that worked on the newspaper there. Um, I believe it was a lady. She got she went missing because she went back up off the story, and so a lot of people are attribute her to the Men in Black. That's one of the legends that's surrounded it. That's not something I've done a lot of research on, but I know that I've heard that before. And yeah, the Men in Black first started showing up right after these Mothman sightings, and that actually has to do with the reason I think that this has been solved.
That would also explain why a lot of times Mothman might be connected, in the public eye to aliens, because most of the time you see Men in Black, they're connected to aliens in some fashion.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of strange lights that were reported around the area, UFOs and things like that, and uh, a lot of people saw this creature. It wasn't just the ones we mentioned. I mean, the first sighting there in November of '66, there were 10 men that saw it.
It
They were actually graveyard workers.
was 5 men.
So was it 5 men? Well, that's a lot of people to see it at one time.
Yeah,
It ain't like this
that
thing.
was, and that was just looking at the dates I've found normally attributed there. That was about 3 days before the two couples saw it, where it grazed their car.
Yeah, so it's not like this thing was just, hiding out and letting one or two people get a glimpse of it. The groups of four or more were seeing it. And I actually think some mass hysteria got caught up in that too. Where it got to be a lot of people were going out and hunting this creature. And I mean, they were getting hunting parties together at night to go out and try to find this thing. And so when you get that many people together looking for something, they may find it. They probably are going to find it.
Yeah,
At
I
least
was going to say that brings a point that we've talked about earlier. I think we made the point when we went to the Dank Fire Hall. If you go into something and you are looking, you're dead set, all right, I'm going to find this tonight. Odds are anything you find, whether it's evidence or not, you're going to attribute to that thing. If you go in saying, all right, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to find a ghost tonight. Every sound you hear in your mind is going to trigger, all right, that's a ghost. All right, that's a ghost. All right, that's a ghost. When really it probably isn't. I mean, and 9 times out of 10, it's got a very easily found explanation. But your mind is looking for something paranormal, so it's going to find something paranormal. So that's one of the things, and I think how we talked about it when we did that investigation was, we're going in, hoping to find some evidence, but we're not necessarily looking for evidence, if that makes sense. We're not
yeah,
going in saying, all right, I'm here to prove this place is haunted. We're going in saying, I'm here to see what's here. And if it
yeah.
happens to be paranormal, great, it's on camera. If not, oh well.
And a lot of those guys too, you got to think they were legitimately trying to defend their family against something they didn't understand.
Right.
So that weighs heavily on them too. I mean, women and children were encouraged not to go out after dark. Children were encouraged not to be left alone, especially to play in their yards, for fear this thing could come in and sweep them up. And so at night, the men were just doing what they thought was best for their families and going in and hunting down what they thought was a creature. I know that the men in black showing up. There is a military connection with the explanation that I believe is the correct explanation. So hopefully in the next episode we'll be able to dig into that a little bit more.
For sure. Well, anything else you'd like to share in this episode?
Not really. I do want to say this though, real quick, that this Mothman or this winged humanoid that you see a lot of times in that's being seen in Chicago, I don't think it has anything to do really with the Mothman legend. The description that people are giving of it is not the same as they gave of the Mothman, and I actually believe that it's a misidentified bird as well. Obviously, nothing bad has happened in Chicago except the fact that it's Chicago.
Yeah. And obviously the virus sweeping through, is bad, but that's not just a Chicago thing. It's a everywhere thing at this point.
Exactly. So,
Which brings us to a great point: social distance and wash your hands.
yeah, always make sure you're washing your hands and go buy your essentials.
Right. Don't hoard. There's a show about that. Don't want to see anybody out there on that show.
Yeah, toilet paper is not going to help you at this point in time.
Not that much of it, at least.
On the bright side, I know a guy if anybody needs some.
Fair enough. Well, guys, as always, I'd like to encourage you to, like and subscribe if you liked what you heard tonight. And check us out on Facebook if you've got something you want to hear us talk about or someplace that you'd like to see us come investigate. Shoot us a message either on Facebook or leave a comment here on YouTube. We'll try to get back to you. And we'd be more than happy to research something or come do an investigation.
As long as we're not quarantined.
Yeah, right. That's obviously after the quarantine lifts.
All right, everybody, take it easy.